And we have another exciting episode for you of the wonderful show that we've been bringing you for quite a while now. So today my guest is a very inspirational lady. She's a wife and a mother, but she has 20 years of corporate banking experience. And she found that she had a passion for something completely different, that the corporate life wasn't for her. And she's going to share her story with you today. And I'm very excited to welcome my good friend Sharon Sami to the show. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Cam. Thank you for having me on your show today.
You're very welcome. Sharon, where can we begin? Where did life start for you as a youngster in this country? Where's home for you guys?
Wow. Well, I'm in the UK. I'm in the West Midlands towards Wolverhampton.
Wonderful. And so that's where the family is?
Yeah, so the family pretty much have been in Warsaw for pretty much the majority of my life, well, all of my life. My mom was born in Malaya and she came over to this country when she was about 6 months old. And my dad was from the Punjab in India and they got married and then he came over. And so me and my siblings, we've all been brought up in the West Midlands, so born and bred here in the UK.
Truly a local girl, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So early years, upbringing here, what was life like for young Sharon?
Yeah, well, I come from a very supportive and encouraging family. My parents, whilst I was growing up, they were very liberal, but they also had traditional values. I've got a sister and also a brother. And so, we did the normal thing. We went to the Gurdwara. I went to Punjabi school with my siblings as well. And I can remember from, being really little, we always used to have family, extended family, friends round most weekends because my parents, they were very sociable. They loved to entertain. So we had a lot of dinner parties. But as a child, I was known as very quiet within my shell. And, I was very quiet as an individual, but I did obviously mix with my cousins and, friends and family. But I did learn a lot of life lessons when I was growing up. And my parents, like I mentioned, they were very supportive and they just wanted, me and my siblings to be happy, just like most parents, out there.
Your dad was in business, wasn't he? He was a businessman.
Yes, that's right. So he came over, got married to my mom, started working first of all, and then soon after, my mom and my dad decided they wanted to open a business. So they looked at various different ventures and then made the decision to open a mithai shop in the West Midlands, which was really, really good. It was great fun, growing up, knowing that my parents, we've got a family business, but also to do with the food industry, So it was great, to have all of the mithai and, the samosa and everything else. But it was really good with my upbringing as well to have that business background and that learning experience, the hands-on learning experience, which was really, really good because it was kind of the foundations that set me up for life, basically.
Yes. Yeah. So you went to university and decided to go into banking?
Um, ultimately, Cam, I decided from a young age, first of all, I wanted to become a police officer. Okay. When I was
Right.
very young, I thought my mom's got four brothers, and one of my mommas was a police officer. And I just looked up to him and thought, God, that's really what I want to do. So I did my work experience at a young age, 15 years old, I think, at a police station. But I also then thought I really like hairdressing. So I did some work experience in hairdressing. And while I was at school in sixth form doing my A levels, I went to college 2 nights a week. My parents were really supportive and I trained as a qualified hairdresser, but I didn't really
Wow.
want to become like a full-time hairdresser initially. Well, overall, but it was just a passion that I had just to, venture out and just do, learn other skills. And then at the time when I was applying for university, I decided that actually I want to go down the accounting route, probably because my dad had the business And I used to hear a lot of conversations when he was speaking to his accountant. I used to see the accounts and, all of that money management, and I really liked it. So I thought accountancy was the way to go. And then I quickly changed my mind to banking. So I got a financial services degree because I just thought mixing the accountancy, the money management all together with finance, with the banking industry, that really appealed to me. So I went to university and I got a banking degree. And then soon after, when I graduated, I actually went then into banking.
So
So
that's
yeah.
really interesting, isn't it? Because the thing that you did was you wanted to go into the police force, you wanted to be a hairdresser, and then you decided to do accounting and finally ended up in banking, right? So
Yes, that's right.
what advice would you give? Because obviously, it's quite a difficult age, isn't it? You've gone through adolescence. You're not really sure of your place in the world. So,
Mm.
what advice would you give to the parents or younger viewers that are watching in terms of looking around and finding your feet, as it were, which is probably what you were doing?
Yeah, definitely. I would say follow your passion. If you feel like you're interested in a certain avenue, like even if it's to do with arts or creativity, because typically, the stereotype Indian is, become a doctor, get into like the medical profession. But to be honest with my parents, they were very supportive and they were really encouraging in terms of what me and my brother and sister wanted to do. So even when I said to my mom initially, I said, oh, I wouldn't mind, getting into hairdressing. And she was really supportive, and my dad ultimately always used to say to us, the key thing is to be happy in what you're doing. And as long as you're happy, then we're happy. So that's what they used to say to us. And even when I approached them and said about the police force, they were very happy, as long as it was a decision that I had made and I felt I was happy with that decision. So I would say to youngsters out there listening to this, if you've got a passion for something or a desire, to try something, whether it's, entrepreneurial, to start a business, do it, as well as you're studying, you can start a business alongside, your university degree or, if you're at college, but really follow your passion. And then another thing as well, I would say is get around people that can really encourage and support your journey, because that's really helped me in my life. Cam, do you mind if I share a quick story about what really was crucial in my upbringing that basically has had a big impact upon where I am today?
Yeah, Sharon, obviously we've discussed this and it's a wonderful story. Yeah, please share that with our audience.
Yeah, okay. So when I was growing up, I've got a mama, and he was in the Royal Air Force, very high up, started in the Air Force at the age of 16. And I really looked up to him as one of my like role models. And he always used to ring, quite frequently, in between going to the Falklands War and the Gulf War and doing all of the Air Force duties. And I can remember him saying to me this one time, I just had some exam results come out, and he said to me, "What did you get in your exams, Sharon?" And I can remember I said, "B's." I got all B's. And I was really proud of having those B's, Cam. I was really proud. And then he said to me, "Well, that's good, but why didn't you get the A?" And I just turned around and said, "Oh." And that got me thinking. And I just thought to myself, well, maybe I just, wasn't good enough to get the A. And then he actually said to me, he said, well, you can get the A. You've got to work at it. You've got to be determined. You've got to be committed. You've got to want the A. And as long as you try your hardest, you can get the A, because the A's are there to get. And then that really got me thinking from that young age that actually it's true. Because a lot of the time, we can look at, different things, different avenues that we want to go down. And sometimes our mind gets in the way and stops us and says to us, you can't do that. You're not good enough. Other people are better than you. All of those limitations. But from a young age, every time I used to speak to my uncle or like my parents, I was really encouraged that if you want to do something in life, you should do it, try. And that's why I did that, with the hairdressing 2 nights a week while I was studying my A levels at school. And then progressing to university. But I mean, I've got that qualification, and I've got my little son. I cut his hair. Family, I cut their hair as well on the side. It's just for a bit of fun. But if you've got a passion to do something in life, you should explore it and really go for it. Because I've got a mantra, and that mantra, and I know that we've spoken about this, Kam, and it's anything is possible. You can do anything if you put your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit, and your heart into it.
Well, the interesting thing about that is one of the mantras that I use from the Granth Sahib is Manjita Jagjit, right?
Okay.
So win your mind and you can win the world. And so obviously you had a great encouragement from your parents and your mama. And the interesting thing about that is in life, sometimes it's not the support doesn't come from the people that you think it's going to come from. It's not always your parents. And the other thing is, of course, as teenagers especially, we go through periods when, you know what, our parents are just not cool. We want to do the opposite of what our parents do, right? So sometimes it's a friend of the family, sometimes it's a relative, but it's wonderful to see this support structure. And, and that was, 20 odd years ago. Youngsters today watching, or their parents watching, it's not going to be you, if you're a parent, all the time that your child thinks, I want to go to mum or dad. It might be an aunt or an uncle, but encourage them. And they will come back to you. So what I get is this, that you had a wonderful support system that nurtured you and let you do things and try things, because hairdressing is not related to any of the other things that you wanted to do.
No,
and
not
yet
at all. Yeah,
that's
and to think
so
about it as well, I was the only Indian on this hairdressing course, because of course it's not really the done thing. Back then a lot of parents were probably saying, become a doctor, go into different professions, the legal system, accountancy, for example. But it was like I still had the A levels. I was still studying hard for my A levels, and this was just a passion that I was pursuing alongside. But one thing that I want to mention, Kam, is it wasn't always easy in terms of my decisions that I was making. So although my parents were, really encouraging and supportive, I feel as well at some points they still had, a few doubts in terms of, the route I wanted to take or different things, especially in my childhood.
look, the thing is this, our parents are always worried about us. They don't want us to suffer any hardship. And so, in the love that they have for us, they want to protect us. And that can be an issue, because you want to go out and try all these things, and your parents thinking about your well-being. So somewhere in there is middle ground that people need to find. And you were clearly allowed to try different things. And as you said, hairdressing, especially 20 odd years ago, was not the profession. Especially, I suppose that at the time they knew that you were academically gifted, so you could have gone into those traditional professions that we see as very safe. And there's reasons for that. Historically, accountancy, medicine, those kind of things have been very, very safe professions. And we would think that once our child is qualified in any of those kind of fields, then it's kind of, food for life and a career for life. So, but the thing is that unless you had been allowed to go into hairdressing and decide for yourself that it wasn't for you, if your parents had held you back, then there would be a lot of resentment, wouldn't there, on your part? And something that you
Yeah,
didn't, something that you ended up not doing at all, you would have been pushed more towards that, because it's something that people are trying to get you not to do, isn't it?
yeah, totally, totally. I mean, you can have that resentment. And, I was fortunate because I never had that, at all. And even I can recall one example when I turned 16 years old, and I said to my parents, I said, I want to work, I want to have a part-time job. And my parents said, you don't need to do that. And I said, no, I want to do that to learn new skills, just new competencies, really, and just to have that interest away from my studying. And my Masi used to be in the restaurant and pub industry. And she actually said to me, she said, well, why don't you come and work for me? And my dad at the time, I can recall, he actually said, he said, I'm just recalling what he said. He said, oh, I'm not too sure about that because it's a pub, you know. But I said to him, Dad, it's like a family restaurant, and Moss is there, and Mossa, he's working behind the bar, you know, and Mossiji, she's in the back in the kitchen and everything. And so he said, actually, yeah, that would be a good thing because you're working for family. So that's actually quite a good thing. And probably because obviously my Moss is there with my Mossa as well. So when I was 16, I started working as a waitress in this pub and restaurant. And the area that the restaurant was in was a Gora area, literally,
Okay.
you know, it was a Gora area. But I didn't find any resistance, you know, and I didn't get it easy, you know, being the boss's niece. You know, I still had to work damn hard, if not harder than everybody else. But it was really good life skills. And then in a short space of time, I moved to a different restaurant, pub and restaurant, which was local to where you know we lived as a family. And I can remember thinking back then when I was 16, you know, everybody, the majority of people that came to this pub and restaurant were Gora. And then all of a sudden, one day, an Indian family came, and straight away, I kind of hid away. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, should I be working here? There's an Indian family. I need to go and take their food order, then, you know,
Were you
serve the
embarrassed?
food. Um,
What
it
caused that?
wasn't so much, yeah, it wasn't so much embarrassed. It was more the case of, is this acceptable? You know, is this acceptable for a young Indian female to be working in like a pub around alcohol, even though I was working in the restaurant side? But then what I soon realized and they were regular customers as well, this family. And, you know, they were really traditional. You know, the Auntie G, she was in a suit. You know, the the Uncle G, he had a bug. So it was like really, you know, traditional family coming to this like environment in this restaurant. And
Karen,
they got to know
why
me.
didn't
They were
why
really
didn't
nice.
why didn't you ask them? Say, what are you doing in a pub?
I could
But
have, I
listen,
could have.
the wonderful thing about that is that, you know, today, and I get this because I come from the same background. You know, our
Yeah.
kids having a part-time job was really frowned upon. You know, we saw it as, and I think our parents saw it as almost an insult to them that, you know, they're there to provide and the kids shouldn't need to work, right? But
Yeah,
bring
that's
that
exactly it.
forward 20 odd years, the life skills that your children will learn by doing part-time work will be absolutely
Yeah,
incredible. And, you know, I
yeah,
had a part-time job at 15, and that led me to start my first business. In the
yeah.
weeks and the months that I spent getting that experience, I ended up actually starting my own business in the same field. So great life
Awesome.
skills in having part-time jobs, right?
Definitely, definitely. And that's one of the things that, going back to my mama, and I pick on him quite a lot because he
You
was
do.
such a strong role model to me. I do. But I valued, and this is the key thing here, I valued the advice of other people, because even my teachers, they said to me, I can remember when I was about 4, they said to me, think about what's really going to set you apart from everybody else. You know, what's going to make you different? And various schemes that you could do, like, for example, the Duke of Edinburgh Award. You know, you had to do expeditions and service and sport, and there were so many components of it. I thought to myself, and my mama said to me, he said, what are you going to learn in terms of like life skills other than the education? And the way to do that is stop, like, you know, having a part-time job. So I did, and I even did like telesales. You know, I worked for an accounts as well part-time, while I was singing as well. And it wasn't for the money, Cam. It was
Of
nothing to do
course.
with the money. It was more to do with the life skills. Like, what am I learning? Because everything then set me up for, you know, going through university, graduating, and then even, you know, being offered 3 graduate jobs at the end. And then I was in that dilemma. I was like, well, what do I do? And this all
Tell
comes
me
down
something.
to,
Tell me something.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you, but tell me something. So, like you said, you didn't do it for the money because, you know, when you're young, you need some money, but, you know, it's not really a big thing at that time, right? So doing those jobs, how helpful has that been to you? Because for me, doing those early part-time jobs and, spending time with, my version of your mama, older relatives, older friends, and talking to them about life skills, as you said, that's been invaluable to me. Have you found the same?
Totally. It's been totally invaluable because, learning your social skills, your communication skills, and everything that goes with each of those roles, it kind of sets you up. And like you mentioned before, been in the banking industry for the best part of 20 years. But 15 years of that, I spent all of my spare time personally developing myself. So like going on various courses, reading loads of books, podcasts, YouTube interviews, doing so much, but all of it, everything that you do kind of sets you up for the future. But it's about, all the youngsters listening out there, it's about seeing the foundations, getting your skill set. And I always say as well, it's about your mindset, your heart set, and your skill set. And if you can balance all three in life, then you can achieve anything.
There you go. What a statement. So you going to banking, you spent 20 odd years in that field. Did you always think that one day you wanted to have your own business, or were you trying to forge a career in banking and something interrupted it and you ended up being self-employed?
Not at all. I think I got into the banking industry and I loved it. And what happened was, Cam, I progressed at such a rapid pace, even within 3 years. And then after my third year, I switched companies. And that was amazing in itself in terms of the role, more than doubling my salary when I was told it was impossible. And it's just literally the power of your mind. If you don't ask, you don't get. But it's also about having faith and that belief in yourself. But then I went through the banking industry and I just thought, you know what? There's got to be more than life to this. And in my role, I was very privileged because I went out on the road and mixing with entrepreneurs, property development companies, manufacturing companies, even like farmers, all different industries, each and every day was different, traveling up and down the country. And I was mixing with these type of personalities. And then from a young age, 15 years, into, 15 years ago, I started my personal development journey and I thought, you know what, I'm going to be doing something like this. And my banking role, Cam, it actually involved going on stage, talking about the economy to like hundreds of people in the audience, talking about the recession and everything else that went through, in the, at the start of the 2000s, going into 2007 and beyond. And I loved it, being on stage, talking, even if it was about the economy, just talking, inspiring, motivating them on risk management and everything else. And I thought to myself, going through, my personal development journey, learning more about mindset and, confidence skills and resilience and self-belief and all of the other lovely stuff. I then got onto like healing and then life coaching. And then I kept being pulled. So every time I thought to myself, I'm going to make the move now to leave. I'm going to leave the banking industry. I was pulled back. I'd get a promotion. I'd get a pay rise. I'd get a big, massive, chunky bonus. And I used to say, what's going on? I don't think I want to work for the bank anymore. And my dad just said, well, what do you want to do? Make sure you're happy. And my dad had this mantra as well, Cam. He said, every day's your birthday if you're happy. He just said that
wow.
Every single time.
What a great idea, huh?
So I just thought to myself at that time, I'm being pulled into corporate. Why? And then I went deeper into my mindset and I connected to my intuition because I'm very intuitive, Cam. And and I just thought to myself, okay, what is going on here? Why is it that every time I'm trying to leave the bank, I'm being pulled back? I'm getting a pay rise, which is great. Mm-hmm. My mom and dad used to say, just be grateful. And I was extremely grateful. And then I thought to myself, corporate world needs the holistic approach of everything I was learning in terms of the personal development skills, the life skills, about the energetics of life.
How long ago did you think of that you suddenly thought that this hard career-driven facts and figures industry, which is banking, needs that
Yeah.
softer side bringing out.
Yeah. Probably about 10 years ago, in all honesty, 10 years ago. And being in an
So you were ahead of the
environment,
game, right? You were ahead of the game
yeah,
in that sense,
totally. You
because
can see all the
that's what everybody's talking about now.
yeah,
Fantastic. So you're there thinking, why is the bank pulling me? And you've spent an awful lot of time, and which is time that other people would be spending doing whatever it is other people do when they're not at work. But you spend that
yeah,
investing in yourself through coaching
yeah,
and learning the skills that would eventually you would need in the new business that you set up. Is that right?
totally, totally. I mean, and again, before I got married, my parents were so supportive. 15 years ago, I said to my parents, okay, I need to go to London for a 4-day course. I'm going to stay
Mm-hmm.
overnight. I'm going to do an amazing fire walk. And they're like, wow, okay. Okay. And they obviously wanted to know the details, where I was I safe, where am I staying, who am I with, all of that. But they were so supportive. And I'd come back really pumped up. I'd even teach them, even my brother and sister and, my extended family, I'd be talking about all this mindset stuff that I'd learnt. And then I'd gone to more. But what I found was, Cam, that when I'd teach this stuff to people in the corporate world, some of them were a bit resistant at the start. But then, like
It's a
you
bit
say,
woo-woo for some people, isn't
totally. But then
it?
things
Yeah.
have changed, going through the recession, going through, a lot of difficulties, people, looking for, I guess, better ways of living, how to handle stress and, different situations. And then it's going on mindset work.
Yeah. So you went to see the big guy and you walked on fire?
I did. I didn't want to mention his name because we're not promoting here in terms of
We're
not
not promoting
promoting him.
anybody. I
But
did that
yeah,
firewalk. I did
but
that
yeah,
firewalk twice. So
yeah, it's
I
amazing.
did that 2 occasions.
Yeah, after I did that firewalk, I had the passion to do it again. So I've done like 6 or 7 firewalks. I've done glass walks. And I have to say,
Right.
a glass walk, I did a glass walk with my husband as well. And when we first got together, and he actually said to me, he wasn't supposed to do the glass walk. It was a sponsored event. He sponsored me and he came along to watch me. And the organizer looked at him and said, you need to do it as well. It's like, I'm not too sure about this because it's feel your fear and do it anyway, mind over matter. And he did it. And I say now because he was very like corporate minded, which he still is. But a lot of what I've done in terms of my training with NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, theta healing, and various other modalities, he's actually gone on the courses as me. So it's actually really powerful that I've been able to influence him as well.
Fantastic. So, today you have a very successful coaching business, both executive coaching and, everyday people. And you concentrate on mostly women. Is that right?
I do. Being a feminist, but it's all about really empowerment. Because
Let's
of
stop
my
you there.
journey
What?
15
So,
years ago.
yeah, but you said, because you're a feminist. Is that the only reason that you've chosen to work with women?
I would say yeah, because going through my journey and also being in the corporate world, what I realized was when you're in a room and there's say males and females, sometimes the females can't fully express themselves the way that males feel comfortable to do so. So what I felt was, because I do a lot of group programs as well, and I tested this particularly in corporate because after I had my second stint of maternity leave, I went back to corporate world with a different mindset, and I tested this out whereby I started running a lot of mindset workshops in the corporate organization where I was, and everybody loved it, Cam. Everybody loved it and they were really open to it. But then what I found was in the audience, women in particular, they wouldn't open up. And sometimes the men, they don't fully understand, even if they're married, they don't fully understand a women's role, a woman's role, that, if they get married, they've still got to maintain their house, look after the kids, even though the husband would obviously, step up the mark and help out as well. But a lot of the responsibilities falls on the woman, and then she's going out and working. So what I felt was I focus on my niche as like being women. But when I do my corporate executive work in terms of going into organizations, if they want it to be mixed, that's completely fine. Then it's fine. I'm okay with that.
Okay. So what you're actually finding is that, so when it's a mixed group, what you're saying, I think, is that men tend to dominate and women tend to not express themselves as much as they do when it's a group of just women. Is that right?
That's what I found. I mean, time,
Okay.
hopefully that will start to change. But what I
Sure.
found is, yeah. And so I'm involved in a lot of like women corporate groups at the moment as well. And that's, yeah, because, the similarities there, and it's more comfortable and it's confined. And I guess it's in a more like a safe space.
The other thing, of course, is that when you got family members, generally doesn't matter whether they're males or females, or
Yeah.
people that you know, I think you have more inhibitions, don't you? And when people come along on their own, I remember, the same event that we were discussing. I met a young lady about 18 years old who was at the event, and I started talking to her. I said, "Oh, are you here on your own?" She said, "I came here with my mum and my aunt." And I said, "Okay." And they weren't sitting with her, obviously. I said, "So you've chosen not to sit with them?" And she said, "I said to them that you can come to this event, but I don't want to see you at the event. I want you to have your own event," which is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about that,
Yeah.
because you're obviously agreeing with me there.
It could be a case of as well that, it depends how comfortable they are at expressing themselves fully, without having the other people's opinions or, their influences being opposed upon them. So in that particular event, which I know that what we're talking about here, Cam, in that particular event, it is a case of, moving away from the people that you know and really having your own experience without, because a lot of times in life we think about, what's that person going to say? What's my cousin going to say if I've left the banking industry and, I've started my own business, and that's then thinking about, what's other people's viewpoints going to be about me. But then realistically, it's about being confident within yourself, and having that certainty to know that, what you're doing is so powerful in its own right because you're following your heart. So, it's about not having influences really of, I guess the negative influences or, allowing that to stop you from being your true self.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I do a lot of one-to-one coaching, and sometimes that one-to-one coaching involves a couple that's in business together, and it's really interesting the body language of people. And sometimes I'll separate them and do separate sessions, and I definitely see that there's less inhibitions when and it could be either partner. So and what that has taught me, or what that tells me, is that we're so worried, aren't we, about what people will think, that even
Yeah.
our partner or our relatives, when they're around us, we behave differently to when we're with complete strangers. Have you
Yeah.
found the same?
Yeah, I have, and the way that I found this is particularly with my clients. In all honesty, because me and my husband like an open relationship. We communicate a lot. We understand, and don't get me wrong. It's the polarities of life. You have your ups, you have your downs. So
Oh,
is there such thing as a perfect relationship? But definitely, I found that a lot with clients. That it's even if they're having relationship difficulties, it could be a case of, well, does your partner understand or is looking at things the same as you? Because 9 times out of 10, what they think, it's like what you mentioned, what they think is an issue is not actually an issue to the other person. And so they're going into kind of different directions when you need to pull them together. But I found this particular with working with clients.
Okay, so I want to try and move along now. So in terms of the female viewers that are watching today, and males, so what are you seeing in difficulties that ladies are having, and especially in our own community? What can we help them with, and what are the issues that our clients are coming to you with that you're finding that are pertinent to our own community?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I'm finding in particular is that people attending, particularly our community camp, is they're tending to keep themselves really small. Okay. And that comes from a number of issues. Whether again, it's like, how are they going to be projected to other people? How are other people going to be viewing them? And that could be, their friends, siblings, their family members. And that really has a big impact upon them. So instead of them, for example, if they want to become an entrepreneur and start their business, for example, but they've got a solid, secure job, they then are looking at other people. What are other people going to think if I then quit my job and start my business? Should I not do this? They think I shouldn't do this, so I won't do this. So what I find is people in particular in our community tend to keep themselves small, but it also comes down to as well their own individual personal limitations. So, for example, the common things that I find, Cam, is, the limited beliefs, such as, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not clever enough, other people are better than me.
But those exist in every community. So, that doesn't matter about caste, color, creed. The reason for those are multitude in terms of people thinking that they're not enough, right?
Yeah.
But is there any particular issues that you see within our own community that, you predominantly help women? So you have an organization called WOW, which is it Women of the World?
Yeah, it's the WOW Academy, Women of the World Academy, which is a coaching monthly. Well, it's a coaching program which every month, every week, they get coaching, live coaching sessions.
So in terms of negative beliefs or limiting beliefs, as a man, I can tell you we suffer exactly the same. So that's not unique to any age. That happens all the time. That's programming from a young age. But in terms specifically for ladies sitting on the couch watching us today, what are the problems that you're seeing, and what solutions can we provide for them to help themselves?
Yeah. Well, women in particular, and as well, which is a key constraint at the moment, is the whole self-worth. Self-worth, self-love. Really having that inner respect for themselves. So depending upon, if they're in a relationship, is the husband supporting them the way that they want to be supported? For example, depending upon their career path, if they are they then being supported to go back and to aspire to become the leader of the, whatever profession they're in? It's because what I find as well is sometimes particularly in our culture, is, women, they get married, and, sometimes if they, in particular, they're breadwinner, then sometimes it can have constraints on the relationship in terms of, the male, not feeling that he's strong enough to support the female. So they have the inconsistencies in the relationship. So to help them, it is then about, working, I guess, together with the couple, but it's more so, because like Gandhi said, be the change you want to create. So with my clients, predominantly female, it's a case of working with them about their inner beliefs, because if they're surrounded by their partner, their husband, and the husband's like, nitpicking at them, constantly, which is like, it's having an impact upon that woman's self-belief about whether she can get the promotion at work, whether she can, leave company and start her own business. She does need that support from her partner. It's about sometimes not feeling that confident, or she hasn't got that clarity, or she's got those, those limitations in her mind, thinking potentially that her husband's not going to be supportive. It's about, first of all, working through those issues, because if she changes her mindset, what I found is like attracts like. So sometimes women can create these issues in their mind, but in reality, all the husband wants to do is support his wife, but then the wife is not allowing the husband to support. And I know that sounds a bit like technical in terms of getting your head around, but I find this happens a lot because when you actually, and I do this in my coaching work and my healing work, when we get to the deeper roots, it's actually that they're not allowing their partner to give them that support because initially from childhood, they didn't allow people to give them that support because they never had support structure in the first place.
So let me just summarize that, because it's quite profound what you've said there. So on the one hand, we say that, and we're talking about the Asian community right now, more so than anybody else, that, we have an issue where the males are dominant. They are traditionally the major breadwinners. And so they have issues in the wife or the partner taking over the major breadwinner role where she's bringing in more money than he is. And so we've got the situation whereby he's not supportive, but then we have this strange thing going on that because she's not been supported previously, she's not allowing him to actually support her. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Definitely.
And how strange, right?
Time to get your head around, but ultimately, and I found this a lot. Partner actually wants support, but the lady's not allowing him to support. She's not being open to allow him to support.
Why on earth would somebody that needs and wants support of their partner not then allow him to do that?
Yeah, it comes down from, and this is where it gets really deep here, Kam, because it comes down to, the belief system of that individual. And a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking over and over again, but you've had the thoughts initially from, it could also have come through ancestral DNA change.
Can I just take you back? A belief is a thought that you have over and over again.
Sure.
And also it's a belief. It doesn't mean that it's a fact. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. And it doesn't mean that it's real, because the belief.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a fact.
Yeah, it's not a fact, and it could just typically be a lie. It's just something that you keep saying to yourself because, you've had that preconditioning perhaps from childhood. So going back to this example of the male wanting to support and the female not allowing him to support, it could be because she just simply doesn't know how to accept the support because she was never supported as a child. Even though I talk about my background being really supportive, I do know, friends in the community where their parents didn't support them, so, and I come across this so much in our community with my clients where as a child we go back, through timeline therapy, NLP modalities and healing modalities, and we go back to the memory of, what happened when they were a child, what conversations were their parents having with them, was it supportive? And what I find clients is that they weren't supported. They were told quite frequently, you're not good enough. You're not going to amount to anything. So when they're told this, Kam, they then form that belief because a belief is just a thought you can. And if they keep thinking, my parents said I'm not good enough, I'm not going to do anything, I don't feel supported, they're not feeling supportive. Then when they get married, they're in this situation where the husband wants to support them, but they don't know how to receive that support because they've never had the support from childhood. So they don't even know how to do it. And then this comes back down to love, self-worth, self-care. And so there's a lot to it. And so in terms of the work that I do, it's really in depth, it's intuitive, it's timeline therapy, going back to the memories and healing those memories so that they can transform. And then what I found at the end, Kam, is when I work with these clients is their relationship is solid. It's more solid than it's ever been because that lady's opened up and she's allowed her husband to support her the way that she wants to be supported. And she can feel that love. And she also loves herself. So it's really deep work, Kam.
Wow. Well, Sharon, that's been absolutely enlightening, and I hope you as the audience have enjoyed that. We're coming to the end of another show, And all of my guests, and I hope Sharon will agree, as when we first have these conversations about coming on the show, they wonder what is going to happen over this hour or so. How quickly did that go, Sharon?
That went click away, went really fast, really, really
It
fast.
does. It does. Listen, absolute pleasure having you on. I'm sure we'll do this again at some point.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time out. And communication, sometimes, we have to adapt ourselves to what's going on out there. COVID is still rampaging through our country, another 1,000 deaths yesterday. So we obviously can't have guests in the studio. We can't go and shoot on location as we used to. So we decided that we still wanted to bring you a quality shows by video link. So communication drops sometimes, so just bear with us. And that's just technology, unfortunately. We can't do anything about it. I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. Still enlightening. Sharon's a dear friend, so we obviously speak on a regular basis. She does some amazing work. And what I really want you guys to get is the fact that, if you feel that your partner's not supportive of you, and it can happen to the guy as well as the girl, it's not exclusively that just women don't feel supported. It's just that Sharon mainly works with women. As a guy, I can tell you that there's plenty of guys out there that don't feel supported. Ask yourself, are you allowing your partner to support you? Are you welcoming that, or are you putting up a barrier or a shield to stop that from coming in? The key, I suppose, to all of that is communication and sitting down and allowing time to actually have a conversation about what your issues are. And if you can't sort those out, then there's always external help. There's people like Sharon who are doing amazing work. One of the things in our community that we seriously underestimate is the power of the mind and how negative thoughts can affect you. And we don't actually admit a lot of mental illness and mental problems that exist in our community. So they do exist, and there's people such as Sharon that can help you out with all of those things. And they're just unblocking techniques. Things are already there. It's programming that you have had since a child, and that programming needs to be removed. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll see you again next week. Thank you so much for watching.